In this video, I will use the Cisco Wireless LAN GUI to show you the simple steps you need to enable 802.11u and Hotspot 2.0 for a wireless LAN. Then I'll show you the matching configuration needed for an Apple device to benefit from what Hotspot 2.0 has to offer. The Hotspot 2.0 specification was defined by the Wi-Fi Alliance, and it builds heavily on the IEEE 802.11u standard. The primary goal of Hotspot 2.0 is to offer the Wi-Fi user a seamless network joining experience similar to that of joining a cellular network. With cellular networks, you land somewhere for the first time, you turn on your cell phone, and voila, you have joined some cellular network. No network choices to make or guessing of credentials. Passpoint certified clients like the Samsung Galaxy S4 and clients adhering to the Hotspot 2.0 specification in general, even though they may not have gone through the certification process, like various Apple devices, can provide their users with Wi-Fi joining experience comparable to that of joining a cellular network. Cisco wireless products have been supporting the Hotspot 2.0 specification for a while now, initially through the CLI and the Wireless LAN Controller 7.2 code, but then starting from 7.3 onward, we have Passpoint certified all of our wireless products, and we made the configuration available through the GUI. During the past couple of years, my colleagues have published several videos demonstrating the functionality with various wireless clients. But in this video today, I'll be showing you how to configure Hotspot 2.0 on an Apple device. In this video, we'll be using an iPhone 5, but we could also have used an iPad mini, an iPhone 5S or 5C, the new iPad Air, or the latest iPad mini with the Retina display. As far as wireless hardware, all you really need is a wireless LAN controller and an AP that can support 7.3 code or later. You'll also need a Radius server for the 802.1x authentication. Today I'm using a host APD running on a Debian virtual machine inside my Mac. Since I have no shortage of access points, in this video I'll be using two access points advertising different WLANs to simulate a Cisco employee going to grab a coffee around the corner. The SSID at the Cisco building is Blizzard, and the phone has been preset to auto-join that Blizzard network. At the coffee shop, if their service provider were using Hotspot 2.0, the actual SSID naming doesn't really matter. And I will show you how to configure this on the wireless LAN controller. Then how that service provider would create an Apple configuration profile and somehow push that to the phone for it to take effect. First, let's take a look at the wireless LAN controller. In this demo, I'm using a 2500 wireless LAN controller running the current CCO version of 7.3. We also have two 2600 APs already joined to the controller. And I also went ahead and put them in a separate AP groups so that I can have the Cisco Office SSID on one and the coffee shops on the other. This is absolutely optional. The same exact demo could have been done equally well with only one AP and no need to use AP groups. But I thought it would be more fun this way. Now, let's click on the Wireless LAN tab, then on the Go button to create a new wireless LAN. And I will call this new wireless LAN Coffee Shop. But again, it could have been anything else. The point is that when using Hotspot 2.0, the SSID name is not of importance. Next, enable the wireless LAN, then go to Security, and since by default the Layer 2 security is set to WPA2 with 802.1x, we don't need to change anything on that Layer 2 tab. All we need now is to go to the AAA Servers tab and choose from the drop-down menu the radius that I have pre-configured on the wireless LAN controller. Finally hit Apply, and we now have just created your typical everyday wireless LAN with default settings, and we chose a radius server for the 802.1x authentication. Nothing new here, it's what we always done. Now on to the interesting part. Hover over the blue icon there and notice those three bottom choices in the list that shows up: 802.11u, service advertisement, and Hotspot 2.0. In this video, we will not be demonstrating MSAP. So we will not be using the service advertisement option from this menu. But now you know where to find it if you need it. Both Hotspot 2.0 and MSAP depend on 802.11u to be enabled for their operation. Let's click on 802.11u. The screen looks empty, but once you click on the Enable button, then you will see this plethora of choices in there. The mandatory choice in this menu is the network type. Select a network type, it could be really anything. Let's choose a private network. But before you change any other settings on this page here, you have to hit the Apply button. The network type is a mandatory setting that has to be applied before you, let's say, set the domain name. Now we can set the domain name. So under domain list, click in that blank field and type in the domain. Now click Add. And let's go back to the wireless LAN screen to see what we need to configure next. Again, next to that wireless LAN, we'll hover over that blue icon. And this time we will choose Hotspot 2.0. Click on the checkbox to enable the Hotspot 2.0. And then you'll see all these other options that will appear to you. For our purpose here today, to demonstrate the Hotspot 2.0 on the iPhone, none of these are mandatory. So we'll just hit Apply and go back to the wireless LAN screen. If you were using 1AP, then you're done. Hotspot 2.0 is ready to go on your SSID. But in our case here, because I'm using AP groups, there's one extra step. I have to put this wireless LAN coffee shop into that AP group serving the coffee shop. So let's do that quickly. Click on the advanced option on the left inside wireless LANs, then AP groups, then on the coffee shop AP group, click on the wireless LANs tab, then click on the Add New button, choose the wireless LAN coffee shop from the drop-down menu, and click Add. And this concludes the wireless LAN controller configuration section. As you can see, the wireless LAN controller, being an authenticator, it doesn't really care what type of AP you're using. We configured it for .1x, and that's all what we need. The flavor of EP is negotiated between the wireless client and the authentication server. Now, let's look at what we need to configure on the Apple side of things. Interestingly enough, on the Apple device, there's no Hotspot 2.0 configuration to be done on the iPhone itself. Apple is using their existing and scalable framework of configuration profiles, and they just added Hotspot 2.0 parameters to the Wi-Fi section of it. Apple configuration profiles are simply XML files containing a number of settings like Wi-Fi settings, credentials, certificates and keys, restrictions on device features, VPN settings, and so on. In this video, we'll be using the Apple Configurator app for Mac, which I have downloaded for free from the App Store. I'll be using the configurator to create and push the configuration profiles to the iPhone using a USB cable. Of course, in real life, a more scalable way to distribute those profiles would be like over the air using an MDM, a mobile device management server, or even via email or web page. When you start the Apple configurator, the default starting page is the Prepare tab. And if you have an iPhone plugged in through your USB cable, like I have it here, you will notice a small digit 1 beside the Prepare icon. I will leave the default settings unchanged and click on the Install Profiles button towards the end of the screen. The configurator will prompt you to plug in the iPhone by USB, but since it's plugged in already, we'll click Next. And here is where you would choose the profile to install, but we will click New and create a new profile. I will call this configuration profile Coffee Shop. Next, on the left side, there's a menu there. We're going to choose the Wi-Fi configuration. Click Configure. And you'll notice that by default you'll be presented by the standard Wi-Fi network settings, where the SSID is a mandatory field. Let's change that to Hotspot 2.0. Once you do that, you'll notice that the SSID field is actually disabled. And instead, you'll be presented with a lot more options towards the bottom of the screen there. Let's choose eSIM. And two mandatory fields with eSIM are the displayed operator name. This is the name that will appear under your SSID. The next mandatory field is the domain name. This value will match the value that we've set on the wireless LAN controller. There's more options down there, but we will leave them for now. We'll click Save, and we're ready to import our profile on the iPhone. Choose the coffee shop profile, and then hit Next. On the phone, you'll be prompted with a screen that will ask you to accept that profile. So then choose Install Now, and it's successful. This is all we had to do to get an iPhone ready to connect over Hotspot 2.0 using eSIM authentication. An important tip here is that the SIM card that you have in the phone must be activated, otherwise the iPhone will not complete the authentication. Now let's see how can we configure that same profile to also do eTLS. So let's click again on Install Profiles. The iPhone is plugged in. We'll hit Next, and this time we'll double click on this profile. We'll go click on Wi-Fi, and we'll scroll until we can select the eTLS option. Once you select eTLS, you will notice that there's a new option now for choosing the identity certificate. Right now, it says none because we don't have any certificates defined. Let's define our certificates. We'll scroll down on the left menu until we get to the certificate screen, hit Configure, and then choose the file that you will use for the identity certificates. Let's start with that. And here's my file. I'll enter the password that's protecting that file. Then I'll click plus to now start adding the certificates for the trusted servers. Once my certificates have been added, now I can go back to Wi-Fi and select the identity certificate. Then I'll go to Trust, and I will choose the certificates for the servers. Now we have a profile that can do both eSIM and eTLS. I will check the profile, hit Next to import it to the phone. Even though the screen has prompted me to go accept the profile on the phone, I actually did not have to do that because the profile was already existing on the phone. I was just updating values in it. So it was already verified by me previously. I didn't have to manually go do that. Obviously, it would have been easier for me to configure both eSIM and eTLS on the profile in one shot. I have done it in 2 steps to just make it more clear. Now that we've done all of that, let's see what the user experience is like. So now this user is still at the office and he's connected to Blizzard. Now what happens if you click on Blizzard, you'll see that you have an option in there to forget this network, because this network has been statically defined. Now the user goes downstairs and he starts walking away from the building. As he walks away from the building, Blizzard is getting out of range. And he's getting now on his way to the coffee shop. Now, in the background, what's really happening is that I went on the wireless LAN controller and I disabled the Blizzard wireless LAN and enabled the coffee shop wireless LAN to simulate the user moving to it. Now you can see that the coffee shop wireless LAN is showing underneath it that display operator name we have entered. The interesting thing is that if you entered on the coffee shop wireless LAN, you'll find that there is no forget button in this wireless LAN. That's because this wireless LAN was never defined What was really fine was a domain name that the phone is matching on as it was set in the profile. Now the reverse happens. The user gets his coffee and I was walking back to the building. So I will go on the controller, enable the Blizzard, disable the coffee shop wireless LAN, and you'll see the user joining back to that Blizzard. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video a good use of your time.